Welcome to Heavily Meditated, a podcast celebrating human potential. Meditations, interviews, tools, trainings, and more designed to take you higher. Let's raise the collective consciousness together. Hello, I'm Scott Roberts. Welcome to the Heavily Meditated podcast. As someone who has experienced debilitating depression firsthand and has used meditation to overcome it, I want to support you in doing the same. Depression, when left unsupervised, like a bull in a china shop, can destroy many lives, and we want it to stop with you. My journey to healing began with awareness. Awareness is key, and we want to arm you with awareness so you can begin to manage and transcend your relationship with depression. I would like to start this podcast episode and part 2 of our mental and emotional detox series by saying if you're experiencing depression, you're not alone. Approximately 121 million people suffer from depression worldwide. I also want you to know that depression is not something to fear, to be ashamed of, or feel guilty about. I want you to know that your depressed thoughts and emotions, as intense as they feel, are nothing more than a subconscious program you have been running over a long period of time, and they can be overcome. We don't want to discount how intense and serious depression can feel. As someone who has very nearly ended my life, not just once, but on multiple occasions in the past, starting when I was 11 years old, I know firsthand just how serious depression can be. But if you take anything away from this podcast today, please take away the peace of mind that you can conquer your depression, no matter how severe. Believe me, if I've been able to, I truly believe anyone can. I went from near institutionalization electroconvulsive therapy as a diagnosis to marrying my soulmate. We're actually celebrating 19 years of marriage currently. To living a life full of purpose, meaning, and joy, and traveling the world full time to bucket list worthy locations, using nothing more than the meditation techniques and mindful practices we teach our coaching clients. In this episode, we are going to share our approach to overcoming depression and what has worked for us. It is up to you to decide if you will benefit from our approach or not. We want to share mindful practices that we believe will inspire your natural healing abilities and remind you that you have the potential to be the most powerful, potent solution to depression and living your best life yet. By the way, at the end of this episode, we're also going to give you the link to download this episode's bonus weekly dose meditation to help you to begin the internal process of overcoming your depression. It's a powerful one, so make time to listen. So if we're going to talk about depression, we need to define it first. We feel like Jim Carrey gives one of the best definitions. He says, depression is your body saying, I don't want to be this character anymore. I don't want to hold up this avatar that you've created in the world. It's too much for me. You should think of the word depressed as deep rest. Your body needs to be depressed. It needs deep rest from the character that you've been trying to play. So we develop characters in our minds and identify as those characters. We play a part in the world, and often that part doesn't serve our highest good. For me, when I was at my worst, which was ultimately my final breakdown to breakthrough, I was playing the role of the victim. I believed I was a victim of my circumstances and didn't have any power to change things. I believed I was a victim to my emotions and had no ability to control how I felt. Playing the role of the victim left me feeling helpless, and that there was no way things were going to get better because I had no ability to change them. I was looking outside of myself for solutions because I didn't believe I had the power to do anything about changing my life. But then when I learned and became aware that I had the power to change everything, that is when the shift began. Another role I played was being able to man up and take it, being able to push through because I couldn't be weak. Who was I to want more for my life and want something different than everyone else? I just needed to tough it up and learn to accept that life is tough, and I need to be tough if I'm going to survive. I was playing multiple characters and roles that weren't serving me because they weren't the truth of who I really am. was allowing the subconscious programs in my mind to override my consciousness and control my experiences of life. When it comes to depression, you must remember that your brain is a tool. You can use it or it can use you. When you allow the hardwired subconscious programs to run the show, you're the servant of your brain. We want to help you change that. As we mentioned in the last episode, How to Stop Negative Thoughts and Emotions, every time you think a negative thought, you're altering your brain and body's chemical state, just like coffee, alcohol, sugar, etc. And so your thoughts can become addictive. Depression originates from the Latin word depressus, meaning press down. Depression is a survival emotion, and our survival emotions are stored in the energy centers located in the lower half of our bodies. When we have become depressed, we have lost our identity to a program. Our mind plays on automatic, and the program is activated when we think certain thoughts and feel their corresponding emotions in our bodies. Depression is a human condition that we all faced at some point in our lives. However, if we find ourselves obsessing over and addicted to our negative, depressing thoughts, depression becomes our identity, and we begin to say to ourselves, I am depressed. As one of my favorite spiritual teachers, Wayne Dyer, said, when we put the words I am in front of anything, we are defining ourselves and what we are capable of. Depression isn't a constant state of being. Like any emotion, including happiness, it comes and goes, and what we really need to do is embrace all of our emotions and physical sensations that reflect our thoughts. And remember, we get to decide which thoughts and emotions we get to entertain. When we are depressed, we are disconnected from life and are in the tight confines of our own mind. We're focused on ourselves and have become selfish. One of the best actions you can take when you feel depression coming on is to begin to focus your attention on how you can serve and positively connect with others. However, sometimes the depression comes on because you're tired and your adrenals are blown out. When you find yourself stressed, you need to take a minute and relax and recuperate instead of stressing about not being able to perform at your peak in that moment. We can get trapped in this cycle of thinking, oh no, I'm getting tired and I feel bad, that means I'm going to be depressed. So you start getting anxious about being depressed, so that brings on the depression even more. It is up to you to decide whether you're about to go into an internal pity party or if you simply need to rest guilt-free. We want you to begin to view the depression you're experiencing as an opportunity for you to radically change how you have been doing life and an opportunity to up-level. At any given moment, we can choose to remain the same or we can rise and design our best life yet. In order to up-level, you must overcome the program. A program that was most likely installed in your subconscious when you experienced something in your past that shook you to your core. When our emotional response to an event is heightened, we remember it in our mind and our body. And we bring up that memory over and over again. We are reliving that moment over and over again and hardwiring it into our brain and body. If it was a negative traumatic event, it's only natural that we assign negative traumatic thoughts and emotions to it. In order to overcome depression, you must gain access to and reprogram your subconscious mind, which makes up 95% of your mind. Positive thinking alone isn't enough. When falling into a deep depression, we make the mistake of thinking that we can talk our way out by using our conscious mind. But that doesn't work, because when thinking positively and using your conscious mind, you're only using 5% of your mind. That is why we try to use our conscious mind to change, we fail. So what are the steps or practices to overcoming depression? You must end your identity of being a depressed person. Depression is simply a mental and emotional state that you have practiced over and over and hardwired into your brain and body. When you focus exclusively on depressing thoughts and emotions, ignoring other emotions like happiness and love, you give them more power and they can consume your life. Practice being the conscious observer and remember, as a spiritual, energetic being, you are more powerful than any thought and emotion. Identify where the depression is coming from and what it feels like. We tend to avoid any sense of pain or discomfort in our lives and seek ways to either overcome it, ignore it, or escape it. But you will never be free from depression if you don't learn to stop trying to avoid it. You must face it head on so you can learn how to move beyond it. That means becoming the expert on where your depression resides in your body and exactly what it feels like. So when you feel depressed, where do you feel it in your body? What exactly are the sensations you feel? Can you identify these two main factors and say to yourself, this is the sensation of feeling depressed? This is the first step in learning how to dissipate the energy behind the emotions. Once you feel confident in being able to identify it, you can move on to the next step. The next step is to figure out what triggered the depression. What was going on in your life that triggered it? See if there's a pattern of activities that led up to it. Observe the negativity and the thoughts that come up when you're depressed. Notice if your thoughts are evoked or triggered by certain people, situations, or environments. Go back and review what your routines were leading up to it. What events occurred leading up to you feeling depressed. It may be a good idea to write everything down to help you identify the patterns. Can you see if any of the events or the activities were something that happened before? Was this particular experience of feeling depressed preceded by similar circumstances to past events? Start to dig deep and uncover the patterns that lead to feeling depressed. Become the expert on recognizing the patterns. When you feel confident you're able to identify the patterns, you can move on to the next step. The third step in overcoming depression is identifying where the feeling and pattern of depression originated from. When was the first time you felt those feelings? Where did it come from? Was there one particular traumatic event that began the process, or were there several smaller instances over time that built into the feeling of being depressed? Again, become the expert on identifying the origins of your feeling of depression. Become crystal clear on when it began and where it came from. Once you feel confident in your ability to identify the origin of your depression, it's time to move on to the final step. The final step is to first objectify the depression and recognize it for being a program. By identifying the physical sensation, recognizing the patterns of thoughts and actions that bring it on, and by identifying the origin, you can now start to realize your depression is not you. Your depression is a passing emotion that is triggered and acted out by a series of patterns that have been hardwired into your subconscious through an initial traumatic event or series of events, followed by a system of patterns and repetition that have become a default program you run again and again as a response to a series of triggers. When you start really owning it and taking responsibility for it, you diffuse its power. When you objectify it as nothing more than a program and a sensation, and you breathe through it, not escape it, but breathe it away, you take control. And the technique you use in meditation is to practice bringing your attention back to the present moment. At first, your old programming may make it difficult to release the negative thoughts in exchange for the present moment. But continue practicing coming back into the present moment. You can do this by focusing your attention on your breath, bringing your attention back into your body and really feeling the sensations in your body and how it feels in your current environment. The goal is to come out of the subconscious programming and thoughts that cause you to feel depressed and back into your outer world. However, if it's your outer world that's causing the depressed thoughts, remove yourself from that environment. Or better yet, become the conscious, non-judgmental observer of your environment. Get curious about the behavior of others. Take the charge out of your observations and simply notice the people, things, and situations as they are. Objectify them by detaching the meaning you have assigned to them. Play around with assigning positive meaning to your beliefs about the people, places, and situations in your life. Practice accepting everyone and everything in this moment as it is. Notice what happens to your thoughts and beliefs when you no longer assign negative meaning to life. Begin focusing on positive possibilities for your future. Replace depression with what you do want. Create a mental image of how you want your life to be. because by now, from depression, you know what you don't want. So now, you cultivate the image of your dream life and breathe energy and life into those emotions you associate with that dream life. Connect to a sense of gratitude for all that you have in your life now and all the gratitude you'll feel when living your dream life. Begin to become the expert on what the physical sensation is in your body and where it is located when you root down deeply into your desire for your dream life. When you practice cultivating this feeling of gratitude, you build your emotional memory and write a new program into your subconscious for that reality. Once you become the expert on learning how to feel that sensation in your body, you can start to summon up that feeling and sensation in your body whenever you get depressed and replace the depression with a new program. The more often you do this, the easier it becomes over time, and the less often it's necessary as a defense, but rather simply a way of life. As with anything of value, you get out of it what you put in. The more you dedicate yourself to this practice, especially when you're not feeling depressed and can practice more easily with less distraction, the more benefits you'll receive. Also, consistency and dedication is the key to success. Just like with any type of exercise, there's a direct correlation between the type and level of practice you put in and the results you get. So take your power back by taking control of your mind. Life is always going to throw interesting experiences your way, but it is how you perceive them and the meaning you assign to them that will determine how you experience life and will also predict your future. We want this episode to be an opportunity for you to look at your perceived challenges, problems, and adversity in the face and see them for what they are, illusions projected by your current belief system. Objectify instead of identify with your depression. Pain and joy are on the same spectrum. They're both intense emotions, just opposite ends of the spectrum. Your goal is to shift your focus towards what brings you joy so you can begin to override your depressed thoughts with elevated ones. And to help you, as I mentioned before, we have a powerful weekly dose meditation you can download to help you even further at heavilymeditatedpodcast.com/detoxme2. Download this bonus meditation and be sure to listen to the daily doses on iTunes and at heavilymeditatedpodcast.com. And while you're there, check out the Heavily Meditated program. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And for next week's episode, we're going to continue the mental and emotional detox by sharing how you can overcome anxiety. We know the world, an uncertain future, and our reaction to both can feel overwhelming at times and can generate intense stress in the form of an anxiety attack. This episode is designed to support you in understanding the biology of anxiety and better navigating your fear, panic, and worry so you can begin to experience more ease, peace of mind, and joy. If you're ready to change, this upcoming episode is for you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with the people you love most. Thank you for your presence today. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you in the next episode of the Heavily Meditated Podcast.